Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Saturday edition of our show. Happy November. Today is Saturday, November 1st. We got a good off-season, a little bit shortened, but quite entertaining off-season podcast of A's Day. We're going to move along with our next edition of This Player in A's History. We are taking it back to the 90s, talking about slugger Jason Giambi. Get to know a little bit about his journey, what he did in the green and gold. It was absolutely some pretty incredible stuff. So looking forward to diving into those numbers. For those that may not be as familiar with Giambi's days with the A's, that is why we are doing this. We want to talk about the legends throughout franchise history. And then we will take a look at what the A's players are out and about doing in the world through our research on social media. So got a tight episode today, but definitely just keeping us all plugged in and patiently waiting for what is on the horizon for 2026. After the opening music, we'll get into this edition of A's Day. Holy Toledo, let's go A's. A's Day fans, thank you again for taking time out of your weekend to listening to this newest edition of A's Day. We're thankful for each and every one of you. Before we jump into today's show, just want to keep providing a consistent reminder of where you can find us. So twice a week we do release audio and video episodes. The audio versions of our podcast shows are available on whatever platform you like to enjoy listening to your favorite podcast, whether that we're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, wherever you can listen to a podcast, you'll probably find A's Day. Along with that, be sure to check out our social media platforms, our channels on Instagram at A's Day Baseball Podcast, on X at A's Day Podcast, and be sure to follow along with all of our baseball content, our video edition of our episodes, as well as content that we have and will continue to create on our baseball content trips on our YouTube channel at A's Day. It'll have the green logo, just like you see if you are watching this episode currently. And be sure to become an official subscriber of A's Day. Check out our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day for just $2 a month. You'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirts, A's autographed memorabilia, future A's game tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. Okay, let's get into our next segment of This Player in A's History. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we are taking it back to the 90s in A's history, and we are talking about slugger number 16, Jason Giambi. Let's get to know Giambi a little bit. He is a native of West Covina, California. During his youth, he did attend Sacred Heart Private School in Covina before completing his high school career at South Hills High School in his hometown of West Covina. He actually was originally drafted out of high school in the 43rd round by the Milwaukee Brewers. He opted to pass that deal. Being a lower level draft pick, you're not going to get a ton of guaranteed money. You're basically getting a minimum paycheck and a plane ticket to take a chance on cracking the roster and sticking through the professional ranks. Or you can go to college, develop a little bit more, and become a more sought-out prospect, and that's what Giambi opted to do. He ended up going to college and playing college baseball at Cal State Long Beach, where he ended up with a solid career, ended up increasing his stock to the point in the 1992 MLB draft, the Oakland A's drafted Giambi in the second round, the number 58 overall pick. Talk about betting on yourself, betting on your own development, going to school to get your education, but then also to increase your draft stock. The older you get, the more you develop your full peak strength, you're going to be more appealing to these professional teams. And so the Athletics drafted him after a great college career in the second round, worked his way through the minor league ranks for 3 years before making his MLB debut in 1995. When he first got called up, his first couple years, he actually was used more as an outfielder and a third baseman. And he got to spend some time at first base, but Mark McGwire was the full-time first baseman when he first got to MLB. And McGwire had his resume. He was one of the game's best hitters. So Giambi was going to have to pay his due or find another position on the team to be able to get that bat in the lineup. So he often saw appearances in the outfield and also at third base. But then eventually, after his MLB debut in 95, a couple years biding his time, in 97 he became the full-time first baseman once Mark McGwire was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. Giambi, 97, after that season, became the full-time first baseman. 1998 was his breakout onto the scene. He led the team with 27 home runs, 110 runs batted in, and a .295 batting average. And then in 2000, to kick off their season that year, and this seemed to be really the start of the peak of his powers, Giambi hit 2 home runs on opening day. A fun fact, he was the first player in A's history to accomplish that feat. And in that same season, he went on to lead the league with a .476 on-base percentage and 137 walks to go along with a .333 batting average of 43 home runs, 137 runs batted in, and a .647 slug. Good enough to narrowly take home the 2000 MVP award over second-place finisher Frank Thomas. He led the team to the American League Division Series in both 2000 and 2001, both culminating in losses to the New York Yankees. During his career with the A's, Giambi was a 2-time All-Star, 5 in total throughout his 20-year career in the big leagues, and a 2-time Silver Slugger, once with the A's, once with his time in the Yankees. Over the course of Giambi's 8-year career with the A's, he played in 1,036 games. He batted an even .300 with 198 home runs, 715 runs batted in, a .938 OPS, and even 1,100 hits and 636 walks. So at the conclusion of the 2001 season, the A's seemed to had a desire to move on from some of their bigger contracts. They didn't re-sign Giambi. They didn't re-sign Damon. Giambi ends up signing with the New York Yankees leading up to the 2002 season, and that's where he spent his career from 2002 to 2008. Briefly, came back to Oakland in 2009. So by the end of his contract with the Yankees in 2008, Giambi had greatly regressed due to injury, and he was dealing with some kind of illness too as well. I remember towards the end of his Yankee career, he was regulated to minimal appearances, trying to make his way back into a regular time role. He signed a 1-year deal with Oakland heading into the 2009 season. During that season, he did end up hitting his 400th career home run on May 23rd versus the Diamondbacks. But unfortunately, he really did struggle through the grind of that full season, eventually getting his outright release in August of the 2009 season. And then he ended up finishing that season and playing a couple more with the Colorado Rockies from 2009 to 12, and then culminating his career in 2013 and 14 playing for the Cleveland Indians at the time, before announcing his retirement in February of 2015, leading up to 2015 spring training. Those roles with the Rockies and the Indians were servally being mainly that either a DH or a pinch hit opportunity to hit a late inning home run or something like that, get a positive at bat off the bench. Did have some clutch moments for the heroics at the end of his career, but certainly was remembered for having such a nice short but powerful left swing, and then also having an elite eye drawing a high volume of walks. Over his 20-year Major League career, he played in 2,260 games, a career batting average of .277 with 440 home runs, 1,441 runs batted in, 1,366 walks, 2,010 hits, and a .916 OPS. So by those career numbers, he should be under great consideration to someday be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, as much as Giambi was known for being a positive guy and having a great personality, being a great teammate, being a people person first, he did deal with some controversy taking performance-enhancing drugs. He was in the midst of the steroid allegations during the early 2000s with the Balco scandal involving sluggers like Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Rafael Palmeiro. They had, if you're not familiar, they did have grand jury trials that were made televised on national television, so you were able to follow along to see what these major leaguers were discussing in the case. They're being questioned about steroid use personally, and then throughout the league in general, and other questions pertaining to the Balco scandal and how the drugs were assimilated throughout the league and things like that. During his testimony, Giambi did admit using performance-enhancing drugs in the form of steroids over the course of 3 seasons, and then including directly injecting HGH into his body during the 2003 season. So definitely he got a boost, an unfair advantage. So his legacy is always going to be clouded because it did seem like after that 2003 season, from 2004 to 2007, he really tried to clean up an image in a more positive way. Did still have some good seasons, but then you could see the performance started to tail off at the end of his tenure with the Yankees, and then eventually was more regulated to a bat off the bench kind of role. During the peak of his powers, he was absolutely one of the best sluggers, and definitely had one of the most elite eyes in the game. But you do wonder how much of that was aided with an unfair advantage. So he's someone that you definitely were. Growing up watching him, he definitely was one of the, best players, best sluggers of his time. But you wonder how much of it was actual true talent. There is some in there, but you just wonder what those numbers would have looked like if he didn't enhance his performance by far. But for sure, if he didn't do any of that, he would probably would have been in the Hall of Fame by now. With him having retired back in 2015, I'm sure those numbers would have been more than enough. 400 plus home runs, 2,000 plus hits, over 1,000 RBIs. If not in, he definitely would have been very close, right on the outside looking in at the worst. But I do think for the writers that are responsible for submitting their Hall of Fame vote as of now, they seem to continue to take a pretty strong stance against guys who have been proven, or at least there's strong suspicion around them taking performance-enhancing drugs. So I do think that is how it's going to be perceived for the foreseeable future. I do wonder, once we get a new crop of voters in the Hall of Fame with maybe more modern perspective, different outlooks on some of these steroid users, you wonder if the shift will change. Because you do hear sports personalities where some people do have the belief that they do think it was a part of the game, the steroid era. So they do believe that should be remembered in the Hall of Fame if it is baseball's true museum. I'm not so sure about that take, but I do respect it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. All right, but don't want to drag on too far about that. I do know it was a big part of his career, especially it was at the peak of his powers when he was taking these substances. But nevertheless, do want to remember from the good times, the good moments, putting up those good numbers, being a consistent force for the green and gold, and really finding his way, starting learning behind Mark McGwire, and then eventually doing his best to fill his shoes and doing it in his own way. But yeah, that's what I remember. I just remember him being so patient, really having a nice, short but smooth and powerful swing. Wasn't necessarily known for the glove, but held his own for at least the first half of his career, but definitely was in there for his bat without a doubt. Some fun facts about Giambi: he is a big fan of fast cars. 1 year in spring training, he did wear a hat driving up to spring training, where it says he drove it like he stole it. So definitely some fun fact to know there. He's been married since 2002 and has 3 kids. Back in his day, he was the star quarterback for his high school, and now in his post-playing career resides with his family in Las Vegas. So a little personal story with Giambi here. So I grew up on the East Coast, right across the river from the Bronx, New York. Growing up, Yankee fan, going to Yankees games, and had the opportunity to go to a great number of Yankees games growing up. And growing up, I would also love to collect autographs. So we would try to get to batting practice as soon as we could, but then we would also try to meet players outside of the stadium afterwards too as well. And if you remember, if anyone went to Old Yankee Stadium that's listening, Old Yankee Stadium was not very fan-friendly in terms of the outside parameters. Where the players would exit, you could see them walk out. They would wave to the crowd, most of the guys, but they would be quite far away. Like, they didn't have to pass by the fans. But nevertheless, there'd be a small group gathered just cheering for guys to come over, sign some autographs, take some pictures. And I remember the game that we had went to, it was a rain game, and it had rained, and I believe for a portion at the conclusion of the game. But then it stopped, and so I believe that the players were exiting around 11, 12, like midnight. And I remember there was just a small group of us waiting. Player after player were leaving. One of the last guys to leave was Jason Giambi, and the fans were yelling out to him. He looked over a couple times. I guess he kind of felt for the passion of the fan base, because that, the fans had stuck it out through the rain, and then afterwards, and Giambi looked over. He came over and signed for everyone that was there, took pictures. So you could tell he had a good-natured heart to him, man of the people. So I always have a soft spot for Giambi, and he was always one of my favorite players growing up too as well. In Little League, I wore the number 25. I played first base myself. With him being at the Yankees during that time, definitely he was one of my favorites. So that was a young inspiration for me. So that's why I was looking forward to this episode. I know when he was with the A's, he was number 16. He transitioned to number 25 when he was a member of the Yankees. But yeah, just wanted to share that personal connection, that personal story about Giambi with you. Definitely was all tied up in controversy, but at the end of the day, I do think he just made some mistakes. No one's perfect. I do think all in all, he seems like he's a genuine good guy. Admitted to his mistakes, and I do think he's done everything to be a positive advocate in his life and his children's lives too as well. So always good to give someone a second chance, and I do think since those mistakes, he definitely has cleaned it up. But yeah, so his legacy is always going to be an interesting one. You're going to look at his baseball reference page and say, wow, look at the high volume of walks, the home runs, the number of hits, the longevity of his career. But the steroid allegation or the steroid controversy, it's never going to escape him. Whether he likes it or not, it's going to be a part of his baseball legacy. So we'll see someday if there is a changing of the guard in terms of Hall of Fame voters, if they start letting some of the guys in that were either admitted steroid use or are highly alleged to be a part of the steroid use. You wonder if Giambi will be included into a potential steroid era wall in the Hall of Fame. I guess time will tell there. But that wraps another edition of This Player in A's History. Today we talked about Jason Giambi, one of the franchise's greats, an interesting legacy. Hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more or getting a refresher on Giambi's career if you were not familiar. Okay, we're going to get up to the back half of today's show. Before we do, we're going to just do a quick ad read for Visit Mesa, and then we'll get back to seeing what the A's are up to out and about in the world before getting on out of here for the weekend. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome to Mesa, Arizona, a destination for every season. Experience a destination where adventure, culture, and culinary experiences are limitless. As the gateway to the stunning Sonoran Desert and Tonto National Forest, Mesa invites you to explore its scenic waterways, kayak through winding canyons, or paddleboard along the Salt River. For a one-of-a-kind desert adventure, ride the waves at Revel Surf at Cannon Beach, the country's first surf park of its kind. Downtown Mesa is a vibrant hub, home to the Mesa Art Center, public art, award-winning breweries, and local shops. Food lovers can explore the Fresh Foodie Trail and the diverse flavors of Mesa's Asian District. Sports fans can experience MLB spring training with the Chicago Cubs and athletics, or visit one of North America's largest youth sports complexes. As the world's first autism-certified city, Mesa is dedicated to accessibility and inclusivity for all visitors. All right. Thank you, Visit Mesa, once again for all you have done We appreciate your support. We'll continue to shout you out as long as we are up and running. All right, we've got a short little segment, and this is going to grow throughout the offseason as we are able to do deeper research and as guys are up to more activities. So we are going to discuss what the A's players are up to out in the world through the scope of social media. So earlier in the week, Lawrence Butler was a guest MLB player providing coverage of the World Series out in Los Angeles for Games 3 and 4. He was a player correspondent hanging out with fellow player correspondent from the Tampa Bay Rays, Junior Caminero. It was fun to see Butler mixing it up, including getting to interview Ernie Clement after the Jays' big victory in Game 4. You can see the energy there. I do think they have a previous relationship there through the ACE system. So that was cool to see. This past Tuesday, it was Willie McIver's birthday. Happy birthday, Willie. Hope it was a great one. Saw that on social media. Tyler Soderstrom from The Post seems to be enjoying time in the offseason with his wife and kids, going on family adventures. Always nice to see. And a couple of Halloween posts that we were made familiar with. Jacob Lopez's significant other dressed up as him for Halloween. Always fun to see them getting in on the action. Dallas Braden was dressed up as Tom Hanks's character in A League of Their Own with his family. They had a fun little post. Go check it out at 209 Mayor. And Denzel Clark was at Game 6 yesterday on Halloween in Toronto, in his native city. That is where Clark is from. Saw his story post that he was in the crowd watching the game. Treated to a good one indeed. And that wraps our edition of A's Players in the World as we do deeper searches into social media stories and posts, and as they are more active out and about. Especially we'll do this throughout the offseason, just to keep us all plugged in and patiently waiting for next season and to see any offseason transactions. We'll be sure to see what your favorite A's are up to on a weekly basis. And with that brings us to a conclusion of a shorter edition of A's Day. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in to our newest editions of our shows. On today's show, we did our next segment of This Player in A's History. We went back to the 90s, talked about Jason Giambi, and then we wrapped up talking about what your favorite A's have been up to through our social media research and through the social media lens, what they've been out and about in the world. Not too much happening this week, but I'm sure that'll change as guys maybe go more on winter vacations, adventures, and all of that good stuff. We'll be back on Monday. We'll be back behind the mic, behind the camera too as well. You can check that out on our YouTube channel. Continue again to like, subscribe, download on wherever you can listen to audio podcast. A's Day will be there. Continue to support us. We appreciate each and every one of you. On Monday's show, we are going to do a quick look around the AL West and see how all the teams as they are currently constructed, how do the A's stack up? Are there moves that they need to make to surpass some opponents, or are they already surpassed some opponents heading into the 2026 season? We'll do some side-by-side comparisons and figure out what the A's can do to get a competitive advantage. And with Red Harris getting surgery and having some question marks of his availability heading into the start of the 2026 season, you will take a look at some free agent and trade options for the third base market. How extensive will the A's go into that market? And we'll have some fun with that too as well and see what some different pathways the A's can go to add some depth at that position. Again, we appreciate each and every one of you. Continue to be there with us. We're so thankful to be talking about everything athletics, and it is a pleasure to do so on a weekly basis. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you, the lovely audience, and we'll talk again on Monday's show. Holy Toledo, let's go A's.